Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Denise here with you this fine evening. We are going to be doing our mani today, and I am going to be using our awesome new liquids. Just got them, and so far I love them. So we got our pH Prep here, base. Sure how well that lighting is working for me. We have top. We have some brush cleaner. And then, of course, we have our activator. Now, I love this activator because it's in the dip bottle. I always end up finding I'm essentially using my brush as a dipper with others. So I love that this is actually in a dip bottle already. So there you have it. And they're not plastic bottles. I love the bottles. And today we are going to be using Sweet and Sassy. Namesake. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. I have already prepped my nails, so we are good to go. We are going to start with prep. I've learned through time that a little prep goes a long way, so what I do is actually dunk it once, and usually I can hit all of my nails with just one dip. Just like that. The adorable bottles. I absolutely love them. Love that they're not plastic. Fantastic. So just give this a couple seconds to dry up. Alright. Now the base liquids I love because they are actually on the thinner side. They're not super thin, but they're not super thick. I have absolutely dealt with other bases that are thick and they just don't work for me. It's really hard for me to work with. Plus, it's usually goopy and hard to work with on the brush itself, even if you haven't contaminated anything. Look at how pretty that is, you guys. Alright, and obviously you can see that I have done this side, but we will be doing my left hand right now. So, alright, obviously that prep has had more than enough time to dry up, so we're just going to go ahead and start hitting my fingers with dip base. Now, depending on what you prefer, some people do different methods. So I obviously just go all the way to my cuticle, or as close as I can, doing my best to avoid flooding the cuticle line. Other people will use a method to build your apex, or just a method that works from the innermost of your nail outwards to help with any cuticle line flooding, just to avoid such things. But I prefer just kind of diving in and doing it this way. But to each his own, whatever works best for you. Now I will go back and I will be dusting off any excess, but what I like to do is I like to make sure I give my powder plenty of time to, as I like to call it, set. I'm not sure what the exact proper wording is, but I like to call it setting. So what I'll do is I will literally go and I will just hit all of my fingers real quick. And then I will go back and I will dust everything off and I will continue. Still tapping off that excess. Just moving on. Now, if you were ever to accidentally flood that cuticle line, a couple tools you could use. You could use a toothpick to go right along the cuticle line and remove any excess powder that's on there. Or you could also use an orange stick. You could use the pointy side to do the same exact thing as the toothpick. Or what I also do with chunkier glitters is I will take the flat end and I will come up along my cuticle line and I will actually push that powder down lightly. Because if you're dealing with chunkier glitters and such, you know, you can have a hard time with getting that really flat, but if you do something like that, it's a good way to really get a clean cuticle line. Alrighty, and get my thumb here. Alright, so now that I do have all of them done, I will go ahead and go back. I like to use a small eyeshadow brush, but you could use whatever you prefer. Some people use a larger brush. My backup brush is actually this brush, but I just prefer the smaller. Whatever you're most comfortable with, though. It's all trial and error, because what works for some might not work for others. So, all right, slightly dusting off the excess on every nail. I'm not pressing down hard at all. What can happen if you haven't given your fingernail or the powder enough time to set, if you try and do this and it's still too wet, you can actually brush your powder right off. Alright, I'm going to do about 3 dips of this color, so I'm just going to keep on going. I love that these liquids are on the thinner side. I just think that they're really easy to apply, but they don't get so dry that you can't work with them, if that makes sense, because I have also worked with liquids that dry too fast, and I haven't been able to even get in a dip with them. And that is super frustrating, especially if you don't have any other liquids. Alright, just tap off. And now you see that I am brushing some of the powder off, but I'm only hitting the very, very sides of my nail and underneath to get that off of there. But I'm not actually touching the top of my nail. Not yet, at least. And again, it's just because I really want that powder to set. I've had my fair share of accidentally totally rubbing my powder right off of my nail. I think the first time it happened to me was because I didn't roughen up my nail bed, because you want to always make sure that you roughen up the top of your nail bed and use a prep to ensure the best adhesion for the powder. Make sure that powder really adheres good. Just gives it something to hold on to, basically. Some people don't have to use the prep step, but I do, because what it does is dehydrates your nail. It removes those natural oils, and I have very, very naturally oily nails, so I just have to use it regardless. It's the way it's always been, even when I used to go in to have my nails done. Got a little close over here, so just gonna bring that on over, make sure there's nothing stuck in there, and keep on going. If you have a hard time ever getting into your jars, a good trick is to dump the powder out either into, I like to use a coffee filter, but other people like to use cake liners, but you can, or cupcake liners I should say, but yeah, you could actually dump the powder into those items. You can get to them easier if you need to dip your nails directly into it or something, and you can easily get it back into your jar. Alright, so now that I'm done, gonna go back and dust them all off. This thermal's absolutely gorgeous. Excuse my little frog in my throat too. I do apologize. Now on this nail, if you noticed, I didn't go all the way up to the top. The reason that I didn't do that was because I was feeling like it was a little bit uneven. So I just went ahead. I feel like it was getting a little bit thick up there. So I just started a little further down so I could get it a little more even on there. So I don't have it thicker up at the very top and at the end. Alright, you guys. And when you pull it out, it should look like that. If it looks wet, then you can actually go back in and put a little bit of powder on there. Should look like that when it comes out. Or that's usually my goal. Alright. And to always even out the powder, if you noticed, I just lightly tap on the jar. It's another good trick to learn in regards to chunky glitters and foils also. If you're having a hard time getting to those glitters and you do leave your stuff in a jar, then you can just lightly tap on the side of the jar and it will actually bring all of those glitters and foils up to the top. Now if you decide to put everything into a cupcake liner or a coffee filter, then you usually don't have to worry about that because you can just lay your finger directly down into the powder and it's spread out enough that you can get to those larger pieces, if that makes sense. Alright, and the reason that you do want to make sure that you go around and you remove this as excess powder before you go and you dip again is because you don't want to accidentally contaminate your base. If you accidentally get powder in there, what you can do is gummy up your base and possibly contaminate it. So the way you do that is, or the way that you avoid it, is to make sure that you brush off any excess. Okay, and I am definitely satisfied with the color for that, so I'm just going to move that to the side. Now, I actually do a layer of clear on all of my manis. I have actually filed into my colors and my glitters enough times that I don't even play anymore, and I just automatically do a top dip of clear. This is just a clear that I made myself. Many, many moons ago. And clear goes on the same as anything else. Ah. Got to tip my finger. So easy to apply, just glides on effortlessly. Another ingenious way that I've seen somebody getting rid of excess powder was using a vacuum hose, of all things. So she essentially just had a vacuum sitting right next to her, and whenever she was done dipping, she just turned it on real quick and stuck her finger on in there. I thought it was genius. I have one of those around here. All right. All encapsulated. Now, if you notice, I have a paper towel down, and that's because another thing that you can do to keep your brushes from getting contaminated is you can wipe them down on a paper towel between each dip, and that will also help keep glitter from getting into your base, from powder and stuff like that. I also have a just plain piece of paper over here also, because if I have an accident, what I'll do is I will just dump everything onto that piece of paper, and that allows you to go ahead and easily put back any powder that you might have lost. I guess you could say it kind of works along the same lines as the cupcake liner or the coffee filter. It's what I had on hand. Alright, so we got all of our dipping done. Everything is dusted off. Here, I might take my big brush and dust everything off really good. Beautiful. Now activate. Love this little bottle. It's beautiful. I find the easiest way for me is just to tap it down. I'll bring it down on my finger, squeeze it a little bit, squeeze it a little more if you need to. You do not have to squeeze hard at all. It's a little eyedropper essentially, so 1 or 2 per nail is usually more than sufficient. 1, 2, and that is it. It's way easier to use than a bottle with a brush. You're not having to stick it back in there, because I use liberal amounts of activator, so it's annoying to have to just keep sticking your brush back in the bottle if you're not getting as much as you would like. So this is an awesome way to be able to get the results and the easiness that I want. Fantastic. What do you guys think? I think they are gorgeous. So what I'll do is I will give this just a little bit to really harden. I want to say I'll give it about 1.5 to 2 minutes. You will know if it's hard enough or not when you go to file, shape, and buff everything. If you go to start filing it and shaping it and it almost peels off a little bit on you, you need to throw more activator on there and you need to give it more time because it's still soft and you're literally just peeling it off of there. So I just try and give it plenty of time. I've learned doing my own nails now over a year that practice and patience are key. When I used to rush myself, I was making mistakes. I was essentially giving myself anxiety attacks for no reason. And I think it's just because I was trying to move too fast. So these days I try to just give it time and not rush it. You know what I mean? I have to wash my hands after. I do think we are good to go though. I like to tap them. If I could hear them, I usually think they're good to go. Alright, so I'm just going to take a buffing block because honestly, they really don't need much here. So if I did need to shape them or really file them down, I have a 100, 180 grit and a couple other file options. But yeah, this powder is amazingly smooth. It's super easy to work with. Super easy to apply, and it does require very minimal buffing. But I will just go in and I will hit every one of these nails really, really good. I'm not sure what grit this is or anything, so sorry I can't give you specifics about this exact buffing block. I got it a long time ago. Alright, so I am going to go in with a different one and just go ahead and even out these sides here. And just go around each nail and until you're satisfied, shape them as you feel. I'm still trying to figure out and get down my perfect nail shape. Always a learning process, right? And if I ever get out of shot here, you guys, I do apologize. And like I say, I'm just going along the sides here and just flattening, making sure these are even. Nice and flush. It'll help in regards to, you know, any lifting issues or any snagging or anything like that that could or might happen. Alright. Now I did get a little heavy up here, so I am going to come up here with this larger one. Just hit the top because it is a little thick up here. And I didn't flood the cuticle line, but I did somehow get it a little thicker up there. And this is what we mean by shaping and buffing, because you can just lightly go in, and if there is something that isn't uneven, just literally lightly shape it. Get that really nice flat evenness that everyone's always looking for. Right. Go ahead and just get these ones taken care of, and go back and even out anything else that I feel needs a little more attention. Come in, hit it really lightly, even it on out. And like I said, if for some reason it isn't dry, you can tell when you're doing these steps. Because if it hasn't dried, then it literally will start peeling the entire thing up. You can't buff it. You can't shape it. You can't put a file to it because it'll start just tearing it apart. It almost peels it back like skin. Now, again, if that does happen to you, all you got to do is hit it with Activator again and give it a little more time. All right. Perfect. This little fingernail of mine right here, I caught it on something, so the end of it is trying to misshape on me right now. And it's just because it lifted it up when I caught it on something. So that's going to be fun to deal with here in the future. Always up for a good challenge, though, I suppose. And if you really do need to shape it, don't be afraid to really hit it, because, yeah, you should be able to take it down as much as you need to without doing any damage, you know what I mean? Alright. So we are nice and even on all of those now. Oh, I might get that a little tiny bit more. And then what I like to do after I shape and I buff everything is I go and I wash my hands with warm soapy water, and I will also hit my nails with some rubbing alcohol. Now the reason that I do these steps is to avoid any extra activator residue. What will happen if you have any extra activator residue on your nails is if you go to do your top coat and you still have that on there, it can contaminate your top coat brush and even your bottle if you get that brush back into the liquid itself. And it's just because, I mean, obviously the activator is a hardener. So it's just an extra step to make sure that you're getting all of that residue off to ensure that you won't contaminate that bottle. Alright, so what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to wash my hands. I use this kind of a brush. Other people I've read have used toothbrushes, something that has a little harder bristles. But yeah, I just use a nail brush. So give me just a minute and I will be right back, you guys. And what I did is I got in there really, really good along the edges and the cuticle and made sure to scrape really, really good to remove anything that might still be hiding out there. Now, I only activate once. And obviously that was before shaping and buffing. Here's what we're looking at now. Oh, and I'm just not picking up the beautiful glitter that's in there, man. My pictures never do these beautiful dips justice. Alright, let's go ahead and finish this up. Now, one more extra step I'm going to do that I always do is I'm also going to hit my nails with some rubbing alcohol. So I have 91% rubbing alcohol. I'm just going to use a paper towel. You can use whatever you have handy. A cotton ball will work. Paper towels. Whatever you have handy. Lint-free wipes are also great. And again, what I do is I like to make sure that I'm really going around those cuticles and making sure that I'm trying to hit all that. Working on preventing. Now, if you find something that works a little better or easier for you, again, go for it. Because we're all different, so to each his own. These are just the steps that work best for me, so. Alright. Now that we are all cleaned up, we are going to finish her off with our lovely top coat here. I love this top coat because it doesn't have heavy fumes. I usually have allergic reactions, so at this point I'm actually going to go ahead and put on my mask. So if I'm a little muffled, I do apologize. But I don't have any issues so far with this. I'm just doing this completely as a precautionary measure for myself because I have dealt with other companies that have killed me. But yeah, this top coat is pretty aces. Okay, guys. So just gonna go in. And hit each nail. You want to try and make sure that you're staying away from your cuticle because you do not want to flood your cuticle with your top coat. Because you can absolutely do so. Now, if you do flood your cuticle with top coat, you can just take, again, an orange stick or a toothpick and just go ahead and hit it real quick. And then you'll be just fine. Make sure to cap those edges. And I usually like to hit my nails with top coat twice. So I will do this, hit every single one of them. And you want to try and do as least strokes as possible if you can. Just to get that cleanest look. Because even with just the one, those are pretty gosh darn beautiful and shiny. Alright. And one more time. I love the top coat too. It's on the thinner side also. Super easy to apply. I'd almost say it's self-leveling, but I can't claim that. But yeah, it's very easy to apply. Applies evenly. Not thick. Again, the fumes are very much so on the low side. I can actually I think I could actually use these liquids without even bothering using a mask, I gotta be honest with you. I do have a fan going because I do like to keep the air moving at all times though. Just a small little desk fan. But it helps with anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I really don't have an issue. And here we go. There's our final product. Look at how beautiful and shiny that top coat is. And you just want to make sure that you are giving your nails enough time to fully dry. If you do have a fan, you can stick them in front of the fan and that can help it dry also. If you do have any kind of reactions, you can use a mask, have a little fan going, and you just want to make sure that you're not directly over everything inhaling the fumes and stuff like that. I sometimes will go as far as holding my breath, kind of like when I cut an onion. But anyways, I hope you guys all had fun with me, and I hope that my tips and tricks can help somebody out there. Thank you so much for joining me for my review of these amazing liquids. Again, I recommend them and the powders to anybody. Sweet and Sassy is awesome. Alright, you guys, have a great night.